And here are just some things to know about long-necked dinosaurs. Now, long-necked dinosaurs are what we call them frequently because that's what they look like. They're dinosaurs with really long necks. But we're going to talk a little bit about their anatomy, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the features they share with other dinosaurs. And a funny thing, the group name that we're going to use is sauropod, and that doesn't mean long neck. What it means is lizard foot. Let's dive in. Long-necked dinosaurs are hilarious because they're kind of hard to exhibit in museums. They're really, really big. So here's a picture I took at the Smithsonian with these ridiculous long-neck diplodocid dinosaurs that are standing around, and you see all these people for scale. Interesting, these dinosaurs are on 4 legs. In fact, here are some of their features. 4 strong legs, creepy long toes and toenails, long neck and tail with air pocket vertebrae, and a small head with simple teeth. These are the basic things. So when you say, hey, look at this really nice derived sauropod dinosaur, these are the things you will be looking at. And we'll talk a little bit about 2 surprising features of how they fit into the dinosaur family tree. Now, the very, very long neck and small head is on exhibit beautifully in our Natural History Museum here at the University of Utah. This is a Barosaurus, and you can see that it's got this very, very long neck, which is basically, you can think about the long neck and long tail on these animals as like the beams holding up a suspension bridge. And so they've got 4 strong legs and then this long neck and long tail, and that head being way out at the tip of that long neck. The bigger that head is, the heavier it is to hold up. Their heads are really tiny compared to the rest of their body. Now, let's take a look at their legs. Here's a picture of my postdoc, David, standing at the Natural History Museum in, what is this? The Museum of the Rockies in Bozeman, Montana. And this is a growth series of long-necked dinosaur legs, from a little baby one to one that's bigger than David to one that's way bigger than David. And if we zoom in and look at the foot on this thing, this is funny. You know, if you're used to elephants, drawing elephants, looking at elephants, visiting elephants at the local zoo, you're familiar with the idea that their feet are on the ground and they've got these little toenails, these little flat toenails. Sauropods have terrifying, weird, floppy, long toenails. So even though you could liken a lot of their foot to that of an elephant, where the heel is not way off the ground, just slightly, like they're wearing wedges made out of fat deposits, but they have these like creepy, long fingernails, toenails on their limbs. So let's compare them to different animal legs, right? We've talked a lot about theropods. This ostrich is a great example of a theropod dinosaur, where we can see the long foot on that ostrich. So only the tippy toes are on the ground. All the rest of that stuff is foot. We can compare that to the relatively flat and splayed out big toenail foot on the long-necked dinosaurs, sauropod foot. And the reason I'm showing an alligator and a lizard here is, even though we can say, okay, let's jump up the tree, let's leave lizards behind. We are within diapsids, but we'll leave lizards behind when we move to archosaurs, and we have some different femur architecture, but we still have floppy ankles on alligators. Okay, this is a caiman here at our local, oh no, that's at the Tulsa Aquarium. So this caiman has kind of a floppy long foot. The lizard has kind of a floppy long foot. And just because dinosaurs pick up smooth ankles doesn't mean they necessarily get rid of their floppy toes. So if we put this all together and we think about the smooth ankles and smooth hips that give us dinosaurs, they can still have floppy toes. Okay, let's consider these relationships. We could say that we have the clade of dinosaurs, which includes theropod dinosaurs. Now, if we wanted to adjust the way that we are looking at this tree, we could do that pretty easily by saying, okay, let's move those theropods off to the side, right? We still are considering the clade of dinosaurs. And now we can say, well, set theropods aside and let's consider some other dinosaurs within this clade. For example, we could consider the group that will give us long-necked dinosaurs. All right, and notice if I switch where I am setting Eoraptor and my diplodocid here, I haven't changed the relationships between these animals. We're still considering that there is some clade that is the last common ancestor of an Eoraptor and an Allosaur and all of its descendants. And within the clade of dinosaurs, we could consider theropods, or we could look more closely at the other dinosaurs that we'll be considering this week. All right. So now with my annotations, I will clear that out and let's look a little bit more carefully. So an interesting thing about sauropods, which are our topic for the week, long-necked dinosaurs, is that long-necked dinosaurs have 4 sturdy legs, right? But they have related dinosaurs that walked on 2 legs with some 4 limbs that could touch the ground or not, that could support weight or not. But remember, the basal characteristic, the basic trait, the simple version of the first dinosaurs that we have, the most basic dinosaurs were 2-legged. They were running around and scampering with their smooth ankles and smooth hips on 2 hind legs with short forelimbs. Sauropod dinosaurs arise by a lineage that offers us animals that have increasingly or variably robust forelimbs, including some animals where the forelimbs can touch the ground, what we call facultatively. They can be on 4 legs or 2. If you think about, for example, a grizzly bear can be on 2 legs or 4. A gorilla can be on 4 limbs or 2. And so these sauropodomorphs, for example, this Platyosaurus that we'll talk about in a minute, these animals are a great example of animals that have a lot of the features. They've got long necks and small heads, but they still are predominantly on 2 legs. Getting onto 4 legs in dinosaurs is a derived trait. 4 legs in tetrapods is a basal trait, but dinosaurs are derived tetrapods. So considering tetrapods, 4 legs is basal. Then we get ourselves over to dinosaurs and 2 legs is basal. If you want to go back to, if you want to elongate those front legs, if you want to have 4 legs, that is a derived trait within the clade of dinosaurs. If we move forward, we can look at even more sauropods. If we say, okay, move over, we've got Archosaurus, sure. We've got dinosaurs, sure. Smooth ankles, smooth hips. Sauropodomorphs include animals that don't have all the criteria, but they have a lot in common. So the last common ancestor of a long-necked dinosaur, you say, hey, look at that long-necked dinosaur. And Platyosaurus, which is this weirdo with kind of 2 medium-sized front limbs. We, though, can pack additional long-necked dinosaurs into this family tree. And when we consider our long-necked dinosaurs that are very derived, we say, wow, look at all these long-necked dinosaurs, we can divide them into what we call diplodocoids and macronaria. The macronaria have shorter butts and tails, and they have taller, weirder heads, and they all have dumb teeth, but they have dumb, flat, leaf-shaped teeth. The diplodocoids have long tails and long necks and dopey buck teeth faces with little pokey teeth in the front, okay? So aha moment number 1 is walking on 4 legs is a derived trait in dinosaurs. Basal dinosaurs walked on 2 legs. Derived dinosaurs walked on 4. Some derived dinosaurs walked on 4 legs, all right? The other aha moment is you might be familiar with the idea that these long-necked dinosaurs are plant eaters, and we'll take a look at their skulls in a minute. They're plant eaters, and they did not chew their food. They did not chew their food whatsoever. They could graze and nibble and snarf, and they did not chew. So let's take a look. That's what we already did. So let's keep going. Okay, so let's think about this. If we want to consider the basal dinosaur that is Eoraptor, it is this one. It's on exhibit. A cast of the skeleton is on exhibit in Lehigh at the Museum of Ancient Life, and it's this little one, this little guy right here, who's about the size of a puppy. This little thing here. This is Eoraptor, and this is about as basic as they get for dinosaurs. It is a small dinosaur with our smooth ankles and smooth hips, allowing it to scamper. All right. But then if we want to, whoopsie daisies, if we want to think about The sauropodomorphs are textbook, just ideal poster child for the sauropodomorphs, which is lizard foot-ish. Morph is shaped, so it's kind of the shape, but it's not fully done. This sauropodomorph is Platyosaurus, and Platyosaurus is awesome. There's a really good exhibit of one in Switzerland, where I went a few years ago to look at ammonite fossils, which I think are way more rad. But here we go. Let's annotate this puppy. Let's look at this. So notice the ankles are not super far off the ground, and we still have these dopey, creepy, long toes, smooth hips, smooth ankles. We have a dinosaur. Look how big this scapula, the shoulder blade, the pectoral girdle that would be attaching muscles here. The neck is extra long. The head is extra tiny. And the forelimbs themselves are not crazy robust, but they're more robust than they were on an Eoraptor by comparison. And we have this really big scapula here. So those are features that we see on a Platyosaurus, which is a basal sauropodomorph, kind of lizard foot guy. If we keep looking at this, here is an exhibit of one. These are a bunch of wonderful, famous ammonite scientists from all over the world, including the invertebrate curator Neil Landman for the American Museum in New York City, looking at this exhibit of the skeleton from Switzerland of this dinosaur. And here is an exhibit showing off the legs. Look how stocky these shins are and how robust this lizard foot is. Now, smooth ankles, smooth hips, we are dealing with a dinosaur, but the lizard foot name comes from these big weird feet that they had. Here's another picture of the big weird feet with the big weird claws. And here's a skull cast of a Platyosaurus, which is on exhibit here in Utah at the museum in Lehigh. And you can see these teeth are very, oh, they're just so sad. These are teeth that are probably more suited for plants, maybe insects. These are not the sharp meat-eating teeth of a derived theropod dinosaur, for example. These are interesting teeth. Now, if we want to get into our more derived, full-on sauropod dinosaurs, we can look at our macronaria and our diplodoctoids. And I've given you, for the dinosaurs to know for this class, a classic macronaria is the Brachiosaurus with the great big schnoz on his head. And our local macronaria of great fame is the Camarasaurus, which was more the size of a few elephants glued together and pretty big. And also has sort of the similar head shape and short butt, shorter tail. Diplodoctoids are also very famous. So I believe I've given you a Podosaurus, I sure hope. And our local diplodoctoid of fame is the Barosaurus, this one I've drawn in brown with the crazy long tail and the crazy long neck. And this is the one that's on exhibit at our Natural History Museum here in Utah. So if we want to look at some bones of these guys, here are some, I think that's an Apatosaurus diplodoctoid. Maybe it's Diplodocus, I have to look it up. At the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. You can see these crazy robust legs. So 4 strong legs, long neck with air pockets inside the vertebrae, and little head, right? And here are some very robust legs, but here is that smooth hip business on these legs, right? And now looking at a derived diplodoctoid head, this is our local Barosaurus, which you can go see with the long neck at our Natural History Museum locally. And it has these ridiculous little nibbly teeth. In textbooks, they describe these as being peg-shaped or pencil-shaped. The teeth are only in the front of the jaw, and they are ridiculously nibbly. And if we look at macronaria, here's our local macronaria of fame. This is Camarasaurus. And if we look at these teeth, they are these flat, sort of spatula-like teeth on a Camarasaurus. So it's pretty easy when you are reading what to look at, and then you can tell these skulls apart. This is a diplodoctoid and this is a macronaria, right? But I want you to recognize these 2 hilarious things about long-necked dinosaurs. If you ask a kid to draw a dinosaur, they might draw you, like Sinclair Brontosaurus, right? Like the one at the gas station, right? And they wouldn't be wrong, totally a dinosaur. But we've learned now in this class that walking on 4 legs is a derived trait in dinosaurs. And even though these incredibly enormous animals were eating a diet of plant material, they didn't chew their food. These are not chewing teeth. These are teeth that can snip and trim and munch. These are basically hedge trimmers, right? So all of that plant material going down the whole digestive system, they are not chewing their food. All right, the end.